Hey everybody, welcome back. We are heading back to the Scholastic Book Fair series of books. And today I have an R.L. Stine book for you from the Goosebumps series. This is number 50, Calling All Creeps. So join me once again as we head back into the past to the Scholastic Book Fair. Pack your pocket money, breathe in the smell of scratch and sniff stickers, and those little erasers shaped like fruit that didn't really erase anything, it just made holes in paper. I'm sure you know the ones I mean. This time we're talking about one of the biggest series of this era, R.L. Stine's Goosebumps. Just a quick word before we dive in. This video will contain spoilers about the plot of the book, and actually it contains the whole plot of the book, and it's aimed at older or adult viewers, so while we're not gonna get too wild here, it might not be appropriate or that interesting for child viewers. But first, a word about the sponsor of today's video. Halfling Dale is the recent release from WYSIWYG Wizards. Halfling Dale is a role-playing reading game where your choices change the course of the story. You're a halfling living a peaceful, happy life in the Dale. That is, until tragedy strikes. Your mischievous brother has burgled a precious heirloom and run off with a dwarf, leaving your family name in tatters. Will you try to regain your good name? You can customize your character, build relationships, make different choices, and live your halfling life to the fullest. With 10 characters to befriend and 28 endings to explore, no read-through will be the same. I enjoyed this app, and I think you might too. Halfling Dale is available now on Google Play and iOS App Store, so please check out the links below, and a big thank you to WYSIWYG Wizards for supporting the channel. So Goosebumps is such a great series because it's still in print today, and there are still TV series and movies coming out based on the series. Perhaps it doesn't really need too much of an introduction. I wanted to talk about one of the books from this series here because it just feels really weird to talk about Scholastic book fairs and how awesome they were and these book series from the 80s and 90s, and to not talk about R.L. Stine and this series, which was one of the biggest ones. But then I also felt unsure because it feels like there are so many YouTube videos about books in this series, and I just wasn't sure I had something original to add. But then I came across this book, Goosebumps number 50, Calling All Creeps. And I just kind of got excited, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to share it with you guys. So this book, my cat just joined us. My black cat, that's appropriate. Hey, Grimmy. I think he wants more breakfast. Okay, Grimmy, stop interrupting. So this book came out in December 1996, and it's a great example of the series for a few great features that this particular edition has. And it's also maybe a lesser known story. I haven't read this one before, so this will be fun because once again, we'll be going on a little journey together. But before we dive in, a little background on the series. The first book in the series, Welcome to Dead House, came out in July 1992, and the original series ran until 1997, with various spin-off series and continuing series of books being printed right up until the present. R.L. Stine has been called the Stephen King of children's and young adult horror, and this series has been one of the best-selling series of all time, which is pretty impressive. At its highest point, the series was selling 4 million books a month, so it was an absolute powerhouse of an IP. So Robert Lawrence Stine, also according to his Wikipedia page, known as Jovial Bob Stine, amusingly, I love that, in what sounds like the start of one of his books, his career started when he was a child, and he found a typewriter in his attic, and he just started typing jokes originally. And he wanted to write funny things, humorous things originally. He wrote joke books for kids under that Jovial Bob name. And he co-created the television series Eureka's Castle, if any of you guys remember that one. It was pretty cool. In 86, he started writing teen, or what we would now call YA horror. In 89, the popular Fear Street series came out, and that was a big hit. And then in 92, he invented Goosebumps. The popular TV series of the same name ran from 95 to 98. And it's an absolute cheesy delight if you ever need cheering up, or just a fun way to kind of get a giggle. It's spooky, funny, sometimes unintentionally funny, and it's very of its time. So it's a good fun watch. It also featured a lot of before they were famous sort of cameos from young stars like Ryan Gosling, Scott Speedman, and there's an episode with Adam West from the original Batman series makes an appearance. By original, I just mean the '60s Batman series. So if you're a Batman fan, don't try to murder me. I really like some of the Pushing Up Roses YouTube channel videos on the Goosebumps TV series. I really recommend you check them out. She's very funny. I really like her. So a little fun fact, in 2019, R.L. Stine was in an episode of Arthur, the cartoon series. That show has run for such a long time. It's crazy. So in that show, his character is Buster's uncle, and his hobby is writing scary stories. And I just thought that was really neat. Yeah, what's really impressive is that unlike quite a few of these series from this time period, R.L. Stine actually wrote all of the books with his name on them. So there are no ghost writers here. Sorry. That's really bad. I have a soft spot for R.L. Stine. I think he has such a playful, gleeful love for his genre. His books have a sense of humor and like drama. And you can sometimes sort of see some of his inspiration from things like Tales from the Crypt and Twilight Zone, which I think is really fun. He just kind of throws things at the wall to see what sticks, and it so often works in a way when it shouldn't even work. He kind of makes it work. Like, I'm thinking of the book It Came From Under the Sink. It's book number 30 in the series, and it's about a scary killer sponge. I mean, that shouldn't work, but it does. I did read somewhere, but I couldn't find the source to fact check this, that R.L. Stine has a son who just isn't into horror and has never read one of his books. And I just find that so funny. It's such a kid thing to just dismiss our parents' work. So there you go. When I was a kid, Goosebumps were so exciting. Some kids that hated reading loved these books, and they felt a little bit scary, a little bit grown up to read. It was really fun when somebody lent you one of these and, warned you that it might give you nightmares. It was sort of a fun part of growing up, which I love. Reading this series now aimed at middle grade readers, there are some genuinely scary ideas in them sometimes, but they're also, not scary to an adult, obviously. So it's kind of fun to look back as an adult reader and think, yeah, that scene scared the pants off me when I was a kid. Actually, some adults and school libraries apparently banned them back in the day as being too scary for kids. So I know from my experience, a lot of kids had nightmares after reading them. I don't think I did personally, but I wish I could remember which one it was. But there's one where these kids, at the end, they lose their parents. And I remember being really uncomfortable, and that one really stayed with me. But I can't remember the rest of the story to figure out which one it was. Anyway, let's get into this book a little bit. So this book is a great example of classic Goosebumps book, but also the cover details are the kinds of details that made the books feel a bit more special and exciting to sell them to kids in this era. So first we have the classic cover design. It's got the bright contrasting colors, 90s neon pink there with that kind of gooey gray. The Goosebumps title at the top seems to be oozing, and I don't know if you can see in the picture, but that word Goosebumps is embossed. So it's got that embossed textured feeling, which is really cool. It was very cool at the time. It felt you didn't see that a lot. They're trying to sort of jazz up covers a little bit to sell books. And there's something kind of exciting and fun about it. You definitely get the feeling of slime, the look of slime, which was very popular. Lots of sliming contestants on kids' TV game shows in that era. Of course, slime is popular with kids again now. So slime never goes out of style, apparently. And then the central image has that torn edge look, like as if it's torn out of a book or something, which gives it a little bit of a vibe. And then we have the classic illustration style in the center there. I love the illustration style of Goosebumps covers. These are really, really fun, very spooky. And the slightly low angle of view in the image makes the image pop out at us a little bit. and it makes it more sinister because we're sort of lower down looking upwards, and we have that darkening sky in the background there. What's really fun here is we have these lizard people in 90s era clothes, the striped tee and the cap on backwards. No real kid ever dressed like this, but that's how all kids dressed on TV. And if you watch any Goosebumps episode, that's what everybody will be wearing. The denim is out in force here. And of course, we have the payphone. Now, I know some of you will not have actually seen a payphone before, which is kind of crazy to me, but if you haven't seen one of these, before cell phones, you had landline phones in your house, and out and about in the world, you had these scattered around. There were a little glass booth, you stepped inside, and there was a coin-operated phone. And if you want to know how old someone is, ask them how much a call from a payphone cost in their day. Also, I think some of these actually had a phone book in them where you could look up people's businesses and phone numbers, which is kind of crazy because I feel like that would just get destroyed these days, and probably did at the time as well. But anyway, that's phone booths for you. So I love the expressions on faces in this cover. Like the shortest one is kind of placating or maybe interrupting, and the one with the phone is like, hey, I'm talking here. And one of the others is just thoughtful. It's great cover art. And also worth noting, this cover features two other very cool selling points. Firstly, the Goosebumps trading cards. And I was really excited to find these trading cards are still tucked inside this book when I got it. So I wonder if anyone kept their Goosebumps trading cards. It was very, very exciting when a book contained these little extras like bookmark or little cards, collectible things. I don't know anyone who traded them. Because they all had the same ones, I guess. But yeah, let me know if you did or if you have yours, because it's such a fun, neat gimmick. And a few different series had these. One of the pony horse related series that I used to read had these, and I thought they were very cool. So the ones in this book, they show the cover art from two books and have some fun facts on the back about the books that they're talking about. And they have the character and the settings and things like that. In this book, the bookmark is still attached, and it shows this cool dude, a skeleton who I'm pretty sure was called Curly. And at this time, this was sort of a mascot of the book series. He's sort of a bit forgotten now, I think, because Slappy from Night of the Living Dummy, he's kind of become more like the iconic sort of mascot character of the series. And then we also have this little yellow goop splat that tells us about the Goosebumps fan club. That was another gimmick of these kinds of book series, and I love it. A little more on that at the end. So for now, let's get into the story. So as I mentioned before, I haven't pre-read this, so we'll be reading it and finding out what happens together. So let's go. So first of note, I love the way the chapter numbers at the top have this unique Goosebumps slime font, like just for this series. It's so spooky. And also this book is in the first person. So our main character is Ricky Beamer, which is such a great character name. We open at night and we learn two things. Ricky Beamer falls over a lot. He's very clumsy, and his parents watch the Weather Channel for hours, which is creepy in and of itself. I think it's sort of meant to be a joke. But I did kind of wonder like if that was going to go somewhere. But yeah, Ricky is sneaking out. He's heading to the school to get some sweet revenge. He lets us know that sneaking out at night is not cool. Don't do it. And it's not his normal behavior. Normally, he's not an adventurous kid. In fact, to quote the book, can you hear my little pages rustling? I'd like our school if the kids would give me a break. If they'd all get out of my face and stop calling me Ricky Rat and Sicky Ricky, I'd be a real happy guy. Maybe you think I sound a little bitter. Maybe you're right. So, not the most creative insults, really, but nobody likes being made fun of. So he reaches the school and dramatically jumps behind a bush so a passing car doesn't see him, and he gets a little snow down the back of his shirt accidentally. You know, because he's always falling and stuff. He approaches a window and peeks in, and a girl called Tasha with what sounds like gorgeous red hair and a teacher called Miss Richards are working late on the next day's edition of the paper. He's planning on playing a little mean-spirited prank on Tasha, who he feels has turned people against him, and also who thinks she's hot stuff because she's in the 8th grade. I love that because I do remember, I have memories of people being that way. Like they go up a grade and then they're like, I'm so cool now. He slips through the window and I crept across the room and hunched down in front of the computer. My hand shook as I grabbed the mouse and moved to the bottom of the newspaper page. I heard voices, Tasha and Ms. Richards talking out in the hall. I frantically studied the page. Then I typed a few words in tiny, tiny type at the bottom of the front page. Giggling softly to myself, I wrote, calling all creeps. Calling all creeps. If you're a real creep, call Tasha at 555-6709 after midnight. I love this super lame revenge, but I'm keen to see where this is going. So why is Ricky getting revenge? Well, a few days before, this cute new girl, Iris, started at the school, and Ricky was tasked with showing her around. He was hopeful that they'd end up being friends, but when they get to the lunchroom, as he calls it, 4 kids are there who bully him all the time. Jared, David, Brenda, and Wart. And they trip him over as he's carrying his lunch tray. So he falls over, food goes everywhere, and he looks up and he sees that Iris is laughing at him. Then we cut to later that day. Ricky goes to the school newspaper office where a girl called Melly, that's so cute, Melly, is rude to him. And he tells us that he just does things on the paper because the school policy is that you have to be in some extracurricular thing, and sports is the last thing on the planet that he can do. So he thought that the paper would be a good one to sign up for. I thought it would be easy, this is a quote, because I hadn't met Tasha yet. Tasha treats all 6th graders like bugs. She makes a disgusting face when a sixth grader walks into the room. Then she tries to step on us. She gives all the good story assignments to 8th graders. You know the first story she asked me to write? She asked me to count the dirt patches in the playground and write about why grass didn't grow there. She was just trying to get me out of the office, but I wrote the story anyway. I did a really good job. She never printed it in the paper. So she makes him write these long, boring stories and then refuses to print them. And I kind of wonder why Ms. Richards isn't stepping in. She's the teacher in charge of the paper. But also the school policy, like if he quits the paper, essentially he won't pass the 6th grade, which was kind of wild to me. That's intense. But anyway, then we see that 2 of the bullies are there because they write about the school sports. Of course they do. And they gleefully bring up tripping him over at lunch so they can discuss it with him. At one point, one of them tries to take a can of soda that Ricky has, and he goes flying across the room and lands on the keyboard of the computer that Tasha is using. And in the process of trying to help and apologize, Ricky accidentally erases the first page of the paper. I kind of feel sorry for this kid. Tasha calls Ricky a creep, and the book says, you should not call people names. Very true, R.L. Stine, don't call people names. Bullies suck. That's my opinion. So Ricky's kind of sad, and maybe he has a bit of a strange one is the vibe I'm getting, but I feel bad for him. Tasha fires him off the paper right there and then, and he's so embarrassed that Iris saw the whole thing. She's really going to think he's a loser now. But she actually takes his side, telling him Tasha seems like a mean old buzzard, which is my word, not hers. And they walk home together, but on the way, Ricky hears something, and he's ambushed by the 4 bullies. They push him over and hold him down in the icy slush that's on the ground, because it's winter in this book. It's pretty gross. Poor kid. Iris tells them to let him go, but they're mad that he told Tasha that the soda can accident was their fault. They refuse to let him up until he sings the Star-Spangled Banner for them to humiliate him, and especially humiliate him in front of his new friend. So he doesn't have much choice. He complies and then runs home, upset that he's been humiliated and that now Iris will think he's a loser and she's just going to feel sorry for him. He ends up, in his mind, blaming Tasha for the whole thing. So I find this dynamic kind of interesting. Like, he hates the 4 bullies, but he blames Tasha the most. She's not nice. I mean, actually, she's downright mean, but she has reason to be mad about some of the things that happen and that he does. And she points out that he blames others a lot. So I'm not like victim blaming here, but it interests me that he's not interested in taking revenge on the bullies, because the bullies are 3 guys and 1 girl. I guess there's 4 of them, but he's sort of happy to pick on Tasha here. So you get a sense of like his character. It's not great. I guess it's easier to hate on her than 4 people. But I don't know. It's just kind of an interesting point. Maybe a little foreshadowing. Also, his parents are too busy with the Weather Channel to really know what's going on with their son. And I've said this in other videos on this kind of series, these types of books, but adults are really funny in this way in these book series. They're always sort of absent or don't really listen. Anyway, moving on. He gets a surprise call from Tasha early the next morning. It's a Saturday and she needs him to cover a story. And she's tried literally everybody else. She lets him know that he's her last choice. Even though it's winter, the school has a fundraising car wash and she needs him to cover it. As soon as she hands him a camera and tells him it's her dad's most favorite, most expensive possession, you kind of know where this is going. Quote, "Then I turned and hurried out to the playground. I can do this, I told myself. I can handle it. I can turn my life around this morning. Everything will be great after I do this assignment." That's what I told myself. But as soon as I arrived at the car wash, my life was ruined. So, basically, what happens is exactly what you would expect happens. Like, he walks out with the camera, everyone has hoses, so they just immediately hose him and the camera gets ruined, and he also slips over and falls on the camera. And obviously, the main offenders of bullying him in this scene are the 4 bullies mentioned before. So then we're back at where we were in the first chapter, with him getting his revenge. As he's slipping out the window, though, getting away, we get a little cliffhanger. Tasha has walked back into the newspaper office and caught him halfway out the window. Zoinks. But Tasha is actually called away from the doorway. She didn't see him, and he's out of there. On Friday and Saturday, I ran home in disgrace. A loser. A creep. Tonight, I ran home a winner. A champion. A genius. I love that. So when he gets home, he decides to call Iris and tell her what he did so he can gloat a little bit. But she's not as psyched as him, probably because it's not the best revenge plot in history, and also because we're almost halfway through the book and it's not really spooky yet. She says she has a bad feeling about this. Next day at school, the first person he sees is Tasha, who gives him the evil eye, and then the bullies start in on him immediately. But today, he doesn't care because he's getting revenge. The school paper with his message at the bottom is coming out later that day. But then there's a twist. He hasn't actually seen the school paper, and at midnight he gets a mysterious call from Iris. At midnight, I love that. She starts to tell him something has gone wrong and he's in major trouble. But before she can explain, her dad makes her get off the phone. Feeling pretty shaken up, he tries to go to sleep, but the phone rang again. I sat straight up with a startled gasp. This time I managed to pick up the phone without knocking it to the floor. "Iris, thanks for calling me back," I whispered. "I saw your message in the school paper," voice whispered. "Iris?" I swallowed hard. I knew it wasn't Iris. "I saw your message," the voice whispered. "I am calling you, as instructed." "Huh? You're calling me?" "Yes. I'm following your instructions," came the whispered reply. "Hey, who is this?" I demanded. "I'm a creep." So Ricky isn't meant to get calls after 10 p.m. and soon the phone won't stop ringing all night. I'm a creep, a whispered voice told me. A girl this time. I saw your message. I'm ready. Ready to plant. Ready to rule. When will the creeps meet? Huh? Meet? I didn't wait for an answer. I hung up the phone. Staring at the phone, I felt totally confused. Why am I getting all these calls? I wondered. Is there some kind of mix-up? And why are the calls so strange? Why did that girl say she's ready to plant? Ready to rule? What's going on? The phone rang again. So now Ricky's dad has been woken up by the phone ringing and his parents are mad at him and they threaten to take his phone line away. So he's exhausted at school the next day. Why didn't he just leave his phone off the hook or turn the ringer down? Probably because that would take the drama out of the story. His parents threatened to go to the school about all the calls because he explains it's kids from school. But that would just embarrass him more and make things worse, according to him. And that's a valid point about how hard it can be for kids to get help with being bullied. Because if they do tell someone, sometimes that can actually make it worse. I'd also like to mention something I sort of forgot before. Iris is described as wearing big plastic jangly earrings throughout this book. And every time I read that, I just thought, like, I'd love to know what they were like what R.L. Stine was envisioning. They sound really funky. So our hero figures it out and he goes and confronts Tasha, and she's seen his message at the bottom of the page and changed it to his name and number. And then the whole room laughs at him, including the teacher. So that sucks. But then later at lunch, no one says anything to him. They just leave him alone. No taunts, no nothing, except there's a note thrown at his head. When will the creeps meet? What does it mean? Okay, so on page 59 here, Iris is like, what are you going to do? And Ricky doesn't know. And she says, maybe leave your phone off the hook so you can't get any more calls and like kind of get in more trouble. And he's like, damn, she's one smart lady. Like, he never would have thought of that, clearly. I just found that so funny because it's just like the obvious thing, like just take your phone off the hook. Anyway, Iris asks him for some help shopping for the bake sale that's happening at the school. And she wants to make a good impression because she's the new girl. So he's like, ooh, this chick likes me. Woohoo. So he's happy for about 5 minutes. But then when he goes to his locker, someone has painted, when will the creeps meet, in red paint on his locker. And later that night, the calls start again. When will the creeps meet? And something about planting seeds, which is kind of icky for some reason. So it's pretty creepy. Sorry, my cat is determined to join us today. So the next day, he's psyched to be helping Iris after school. It's pretty cute, actually. He's like, oh, she likes me. I think it's sweet. He feels like now he might finally be seen differently, get some acceptance and have a friend. But as he's going to meet her, the 4 bullies grab him and drag him off into the woods across from the school. I love that there's spooky woods right across from the school. It's very Goosebumps-esque. Why did you drag me here? I demanded. I tried to sound calm, but my voice cracked. What are you going to do to me? Their faces remained blank, stern and serious. They didn't even laugh when my voice cracked. Finally, Wart broke the tense silence. We wouldn't harm you, Commander, he said. I was sure I hadn't heard him correctly. Excuse me? We are the creeps, Wart continued. My mouth dropped open. So you're the ones that have been calling me and sending me messages? All 4 of them nodded solemnly. Yes, Commander. I love this twist. I think that's really fun. So they think he's their commander and they are the creeps. And while he thinks they're playing a prank on him at first, just to show him the so basically he thinks they're playing a prank on him at first, and then they show him these things called identity seeds. And they need to use them immediately because apparently they have a short shelf life in order to take over the world. And they look just like chocolate chips. Very cute, very convenient. And then they start to shapeshift into monsters. That's monsters in all capital letters. Creeps rule, humans drool. I stared in horror as their faces twisted and their bodies began to transform. Bumps popped out all over their heads. Bumps about the size of quarters rose up on their arms and hands. Their skin began to darken. In seconds, they were all bright purple. The big purple bumps trembled and shook on their skin. Their faces stretched. Their hair disappeared into their purple skulls. Their eyes sank into their flat, purple heads. Long, ropey tongues flicked from between jagged rows of teeth. Bumpy, purple tongues glistened as they whipped them from side to side. I stared at them, unable to move, unable to run, unable to take my eyes off the 4 creatures. Bumpy lizard creatures. Creeps. So they're creeps. They're horrible lizard people. And then one of them eats a squirrel whole, which is pretty dark. It's kind of gross. Ricky needs to get away from them, so he decides to just play along for now. He's going to be like, yeah, I'm your commander, sure. And he's going to see what he can think of to avert their plan for world domination. But before he can get away, Wart says he thinks they should sneak into the school cafeteria the next morning and put the seeds in the food. So the whole school will eat it, and by nightfall, all the kids will be creeps. It's a pretty good plan. So Ricky's in a tough spot. He can't let them know he's not one of them in case they eat him like they ate that squirrel. But he also needs to get help and stop their plan from turning everyone into creepy lizard people. Although most of the people at his school laugh at him all the time, even the teachers. So I'm not sure we'd notice a huge difference if they all turned into creeps. Also, he's distracted. So he never met up with Iris. I'm kind of wondering, she's going to think he just ditched her for no reason. So back at home that night, his parents clearly need some HelloFresh or something, because we learn that they have fast food most nights because his parents don't have time and energy to cook. Now, no shade on them for that because, we're all human. I'm just saying, junk food every night, an obsession with the Weather Channel. I feel like they're maybe not coping very well. They're having fried chicken, and now I'm hungry. Ricky tells them about what's happening, about the creeps, but then Dad drops a bombshell. They're creeps too. Just kidding, he says. They don't believe him. They just laugh at him. Everybody laughs at this kid. He calls Iris, but there's no answer, so he decides to go to school early the next day and talk to his principal. So I was thinking as an adult reader at this point, you think no one's going to believe him. That sucks. What's he going to do? But as a child reader, how scary to be isolated like that and have no one to talk to, no one who takes you seriously, no one who's going to hear you out and believe you and try to help you. And I can think of situations where kids would be in a similar scenario in that sense and could relate to Ricky here, to how sort of scary that would be. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, before he can talk to the principal, she brings up that there were complaints that he started a water fight at the car wash, which is super unfair. Jeez. So then he's off balance and he kind of tells the story all wrong. And she's sort of like, okay, are you going crazy? Do you have a fever? So he just bails. He just runs out of her office. So the plan to tell the principal and get help didn't work. But as he runs out, he runs right into the creep gang, who are there to enact their evil plan, and they drag him along with them. So they take him down to the school kitchen. They shove the bag of seeds in his hand, and they push him inside the door. And there are those big food trays out, and the cooks are at work, but they haven't seen him yet. So he can't escape. There's no way out. The creeps are watching, and they're standing in the door. So he kind of goes, okay, I guess I'm going to have to go through with the mission and put the seeds in the food. It's a pretty tense scene here. So what does he do? He fakes tripping over because we know he's super clumsy from that heavy-handed first chapter descriptor. So the seeds go everywhere, all over the floor, and he's like, oh, sorry guys, mission over. I tried. Wart pulled me up and dragged me away from the open door. I shook my head sadly. Sorry, I murmured. I'm so sorry. I failed you all. I pretended to be near tears. Really, I'm so sorry. No problem, Jared replied. He pulled another bag of seeds from his coat pocket and slapped it into my hand. We always carry a spare, Brenda whispered. You never know when you'll need more identity seeds. That's lucky, I replied. Now go do it, Wart whispered softly, slapping me on the back. This time you will not fail, Commander. So he has to go back in, poor kid. He puts the seeds in the mac and cheese and stirs them in. Anyway, a cook catches him and asks what he's doing. Eep. He tries to whisper to her that the macaroni is poisoned, but she's sick of hearing bad things about the cafeteria food, which is fair, because there's a lot of lines in this book about how the food is really bad in the cafeteria. She seems like a nice lady, and kids can be picky eaters. So then she tries to make him eat a bowl of the mac and cheese with the identity seeds in it. But luckily he's able to run off, and the creeps are also happy with him now too. That is until after lunch, when no one changes. Because earlier in the book we learnt that no one eats the mac and cheese. So, I mean, that's kind of a great way to make sure no one eats the seeds. But of course they have more ready and waiting. They're really packing these. And they're pretty keen on this plan for world domination. They're not going to be put off easily. So Brenda has the brilliant idea, which you probably have all thought of, to put them in the bake sale cookies and give them out. But Ricky says, no, let's plant them. Not the most solid writing in the scene here, but either way, Ricky has given himself away a little bit here, that he's maybe not one of them. And they all surround him and want him to prove that he's their commander. So what's going to happen? We end on a little cliffhanger chapter there. Well, luckily, our friend Iris with the jangly earrings appears out of nowhere and says, I'm a second in command. No time for this drama. We got to get to my house and make some creep cakes. So for a moment, he thinks that she's a creep, that she's one of them. But I mean, come on, it's Iris. She's actually just an awesome friend and she's trying to rescue him. She's cool with her plastic earrings and her solid friendship skills. But what can they do? They bake the cookies with the seeds in them and they take them to the school bake sale, just kind of hoping they come up with a plan at some point. The only plan that Ricky comes up with is jumping on the stage and telling everyone not to eat the free cookies, which I think would just let everyone know that there are cookies being given out for free, but he's a kid. It's fine. It makes a kind of sense to sort of do something, do anything. Of course, it's Ricky, so everyone just laughs at him, especially Tasha. I wondered at this point if maybe she was the real commander of the creeps, because obviously these creeps have been waiting for their commander, so I was sort of thinking another character in the book might pop up as being the real commander. So his next plan is, what if I just eat all 200 cookies myself? Another terrible plan, bless him. He tries, but the kids start throwing like brownies and cheesecake at him. These kids are terrible. And Tasha snaps a photo of him gobbling cookies with like brownie goop on his face. And then the creeps are like, Commander? They'll all be your slaves. So if they eat the cookies, they're going to turn into creeps, but they're also going to all be under his command, apparently. From now on, I told myself, things are going to be very different around here, and I can't wait. So basically, he realizes that, you know, these people suck, and he gets them to eat the cookies, and everyone turns into creeps, and he eats a cookie himself, so he becomes one as well. So I kind of like that. I think it's a fun twist. It's a little bit dark, which is really fun with these Goosebumps books, that sometimes, you know, some of the things in them would be kind of dark and creepy. And I don't know, it was kind of funny as well. But I did kind of wonder, what will Iris think? What's going to happen to her? We never know. And I was also thinking, you know, if he eats the cookies himself, wouldn't that end up making him like a slave to the creeps as well? I don't know. Maybe he's just kind of giving up. Like, he's not actually the commander. So the real commander might be in the room. It just kind of leaves a few unanswered questions. But I mean, that's okay. It's that kind of book. It doesn't really matter. It was an enjoyable read, you know? So in my opinion, this one isn't one of the super well-known all-time favorites of the series. Like Monster Blood pops to mind, any of the slappy ones. There's some that are just sort of real classic, iconic R.L. Stine Goosebumps books. But, you know, I liked this. It did feel a little rushed in places and not always perfectly thought out. but I love that dark twist in the end. And the budding friendship with Iris is nice. It kind of feels like, nobody likes this kid, but she's just a nice person. And I don't know. I just thought that was nice how that kind of was playing out. And I like the lizard people creeps that walk among us. That's a really fun, spooky idea there, that, the people might not be who you think they are. These are all great concepts for any horror book, really, but for kids' horror, I think it's really good. So the writing style of this book, or R.L. Stine books, is very simple, even more so than some other book series from this type of book series for kids. It's very easy to read and comprehend for its age group, and it has lots of short chapters. There's like 25 chapters or more, which I think might make kids feel like they're sort of making progress and achieving something as they read. And it makes the book very pacey. It gives you lots of little moments for sort of cliffhangers and twists and things. While it feels unique in its ideas and plots, there's not really an R.L. Stine style of writing. He doesn't have a super idiosyncratic style. I think the characters are very simply written and easy to understand, which these book series often have to do in quite a few words. They're often physically described, but in these books they're not over-described. By being a certain sort of character type, kids can relate to the archetype, the school bully, the mean girl, the best friend, the victim, all those kinds of things that kids would recognize. Or if just readers would recognize pretty quickly without you needing a lot of character development. However, the plot and the twists and all that kind of stuff is what hooks you in with R.L. Stine, and I really like that. At the end of this book, we have some preview chapters from Beware the Snowman, the next book in the series. I haven't actually read that one. I'm sure this created anticipation for some kids for the next book in the series, but I never liked this when books did this. Because I think for me, I feel like I have more of the book left, and then it feels like the story ends really abruptly because you sort of got you think you've got more chapters to go kind of thing. And also, I don't really want to read from the next book in a series until I have the whole book. For me, that's kind of annoying. Does anybody else hate that when books do this? I'm super curious if I'm the only one that feels that way. And then the last couple of pages, we have some ad pages for Give Yourself Goosebumps. That's the Choose Your Own Adventure line of Goosebumps books. Goosebumps Presents, which in my opinion are a cash grab. They're books based on the TV episodes, and then they have stills from the show in them as like a bonus. But like the show is already based on a book, so then it's like book TV, like a book of the TV series of a book. I don't know. That kind of bothers me. And then we have the Goosebumps fan club pack. So I think this is pretty cool. This was only for US and Canada residents for $8.95 plus $2 shipping and handling. You get some cool swag. There's a glow-in-the-dark pen, a zipper tag, notepad, a biography of Curly, the skeleton mascot I mentioned earlier. It's kind of interesting. And then you've got things like game sheets and branded wallet, and there's also the Goosebumps newsletter, which was called The Scream. So I think I mentioned this with Babysitter's Club when I did one of those books, but these fan clubs fascinated me. They always looked really, really fun, and I think I just like the idea of sort of being in a club for your sort of, I guess like now we would call it a fandom, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess this fan pack is mostly cheap merch, but for a kid, it's so exciting and you feel like you're sort of in on the series, So these were never available in the country that I grew up in. So if you were a member of the Goosebumps fan club, or any of these fan clubs actually, please tell me about it in the comments, because I just really want to know about it. I want to know, what was in the newsletter and if it was exciting for you as a kid, or if the little merchandise that they sent you in the fan pack, was it like really cheap? But yeah, just in closing, Calling All Creeps has a Goosebumps Presents book, which I sort of mentioned those before, because it was adapted as season 2, episode 19 of the Goosebumps TV show, in case you were curious. So when it first aired, the scene of Ricky's face transforming in the final scene after he ate the cookie was cut in the UK because the CBBC, which is the BBC's children's channel, thought it was a little too scary for kids, which is fun because the costumes worn by the creeps are like pretty good for the time period and the budget, but they're pretty funny when you watch the episodes today. They're dated. It's fine. Especially when the creeps change form, they do that sort of morphing thing that was really popular in that era. So this one is not my favorite or most memorable episode in the TV series. That's more just personal taste. I'm not, if it's your favorite, I totally get why. Yeah, but it does, all of the series, the TV series has this kind of nostalgic, awkward charm that just makes them kind of fun to watch. So yeah, what I would love to know is if you were a Goosebumps fan as a kid, please tell me. Are you currently a Goosebumps fan? Because Goosebumps has not gone anywhere. Do you have a favorite book in the series? I would love to know. Did you read this one as a kid? And if you did, did it scare you? Because obviously I didn't read this one as a kid, so I'm kind of interested to see what its impact, was like. And do you still have your original trading cards? I asked that earlier. Are they in mint condition if you do? Did these books scare you? Just let me know about your Goosebumps memories or opinions in the comments, because it's such a fun series to talk about. So if you, I just love to hear your thoughts or whatever, or if you didn't read any of these because they were too scary or you weren't allowed to read them, that would really interest me as well. And have a spooky day. You can check out some of my other videos. I also have another channel and socials, so you can find links below if you want more of that. And if you want to hang out again, remember to like and subscribe. And you can always leave a comment, let me know what you thought, or let me know what else you might want to see. Thank you.